I'm Timothy Staten Davis. I am a self-defined cultural technical game designer, meaning that I focus on bridging game design concepts with
Mhm.
cultural background, culturalization in particular. So I've been in the industry for give about 10 years now, working
Okay.
in AAA games, large scale action titles, and most recently, the upcoming Wu-Tang Rise of the Deceiver action RPG.
Hmm.
Uh, and then in addition to that, I do a lot of indie development work with game jams, other smaller indie development games, games of my own, and a lot of community work for folks from the African diaspora that are
Okay.
based in the U.S. to kind of bring people together, help
Mhm.
each other level up together, and give each other mutual support as we're navigating the industry and trying to make our own types of games and stuff.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's been heavy focus for me. It's my time in the industry. Um, I got my background from Howard University initially, and then went to Carnegie Mellon University for grad school, where I focused on entertainment and games and building out that kind of experience. And so I've kind of focused on kind of bridging a bit of the entertainment, interactive entertainment, with my own personal background and experience, and continue to kind of push that forward. Um, Besides that, I also am been focusing on bringing like wellness concepts and spiritual work into entertainment as well, and so also endeavoring to bridge some of that gap to bring some useful. Using interactivity to help reach more people and give them more of an experience to kind of figure out ways to bring better um, wellness and concepts into their life so they can use it on a day-to-day experience. So that's been a lot of my primary focus. I got a couple other things in the mix as far as I work for Black in Gaming as a community advisor. I also co-run the Melanated Game Kitchen Collective slash co-op studio, and have been working to release some actual or assist with releasing some actual um, wellness products with some friends of mine recently. Kind of just bridging all those things.
What was your lead into all of this stuff? I mean, obviously you had to start somewhere. So what sort of things were you doing like growing up? Was this sort of always a part of your trajectory or was this something you sort of
Mm.
fell into?
Yeah, pretty much. Like I know I mentioned Howard University because that's
Mhm.
basically where I got my start. Uh, as far as getting into programming, computer science, all that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
But I usually tell people it goes back further than that. Back when I was in middle school, some friends of mine, we used to make games together casually.
Huh.
We were big into RPGs, so we would spend time making characters, making stories, drawing them out, that kind of stuff in our like spare time at school, that kind of stuff. And then when we go home, we go to somebody's house and jump on the computer and use Game Maker or RPG Maker and
Mhm.
tinker around with some of these ideas to like, oh, let's see, we can make a little a snippet, a little, a couple mechanics here and there, or try to
Yeah.
replicate this battle system. So we did that for a couple years, and then pretty much like dropped the whole game thing, I guess, so to speak, as you
Hmm.
start to figure out like career shit and
Oh,
how to
I got you.
navigate,
I was just gonna say, cause like, I mean, you do games now, and I mean, you sort of started, kinda way back, a little bit way back.
mhm,
So, like, what's sort of difference now? Like, obviously, you got back into it, so you got more tools and stuff to work with, kinda make it a little bit easier, I'm assuming.
yeah.
Like, what sort of transition has that been now since you kinda started, sort of from the ground floor of, RPG Maker and stuff like that to now, which, I mean, you got your Unreals and your all that good stuff.
Mhm.
So, like, how has that sort of transition been for you seeing how you kind of seen both sides of it?
Um, yeah, I mean, the transition's been interesting, right? Because, uh, I kinda I don't use some of these older tools anymore, I
Mhm.
guess, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, they have a place, and it's fortunate that the companies that have made these engines, like a game maker, an RPG maker, are still making these engines because they have a place in terms of um, getting ideas out quickly, right?
Mhm.
That's kind of like the key thing. If you want to make a particular type of thing, a type of genre, then you need to use the right tools to get it
Mhm.
done, right?
Yep.
And we've seen some indie titles that have been really impressive that have used something as simple as a game maker that is still able to communicate a very specific experience, right? That can do well. Um, and so that has a place. I haven't dabbled into that as much because a lot of the ideas that I end up having, or trying to keep up with the industry standards, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
Most of my work has been using some of these like m- bigger engines that are more custom to making a 3D experience, right? Or
Gotcha, yeah.
a more robust experience than what is limited by some of these other engines, right? So Unreal Engine, Unity, I guess Godot at this point, um, and some others that may pop up, but like that's kind of like keeping up with the industry standards, keeping up with fidelity, and
Mhm.
how to make something that is, looks good, plays well, technically up to par,
Yeah.
and so that's kind of been the transition, I suppose, right? Or even like,
Yeah.
and I spent time doing some VR stuff back in school, right?
Mhm.
And so, those kinds of tools are only being integrated with some of these larger, more robust engines, like a
Yeah.
Unity and a Unreal. So it's kind of just keeping up with the industry standard. And then also, yeah, every now and then I might talk with some friends about dabbling into something that's simpler
Mhm.
because we want to like prove out an idea that's faster, right? Or
Gotcha.
have a specific thing.
Mhm.
And so then it's just kind of like, choosing the right tool and then also learning the right tool for
Mhm.
what you're trying to build, you know what I'm saying?
You brought up the, usage of VR and stuff like that. I just got me a, gaming PC not that long ago,
Mm,
right? And so, like, now I'm starting to dabble into some of these, high-powered games, using Unreal 5 and,
right.
running graphics they have no business running already anyway. No computer can probably handle them unless it costs, like, 5 grand or something. But, like, it's just, like, interesting to see sort of where the technology is going, and kind of where it's came from. It kind of seems like it just kind of keeps shooting up. You know what I'm saying? It's
True.
like
Very
it's
true.
just sort of flying by with just different technical innovations and stuff like that. It just seems like it's something very different. So
Yeah.
like for you, like when you with these new tools and stuff now that you're making games, just helping have it with either I guess bigger projects or indie projects, your own projects, whatever you want to call it, like is the processes different for you or all of everything is sort of just the same? You just sort of kind of match it to the project? How do you work around like the different constraints? Because I've talked about this
Mm,
before to where like I'm sure it's different dealing or having to work for a super big time company that has all these
mhm,
rules and regulations and you might only be working on a very small sliver of something that might even actually make it into the game if it even makes it into the game type of thing to where,
mhm.
you really don't have as much control or like the indie situation or the smaller team to where like your input is, very much more part of the overall project, I guess that would be
Yeah.
success or failure too at that point. But
True,
like you
true.
at least get more sort of a cachet as far as what the final product is. Like how do you sort of feel about that juggle, seeing how you've kinda done both?
Yeah, that's the thing is, like, I've always done I think as, like, any creative, generally speaking, right, we kind of have to figure out, like, the right balance between
Mhm,
how do we work on the things that make us feel fulfilled or allow us to, like, kinda get our ideas out and work on something that we like versus doing the thing that's gonna bring in resource and income into our life, right?
mhm,
So like others have been doing, right? Like I've kind of took a route of, oh, let me I have ideas. I have friends who have ideas, so let me like kind of spend time on those and build some things on the side
Mhm.
casually if we can, if there's time, you know. And then I'll spend time making these bigger things at these companies where I have a very specific role, right?
Mhm.
And I have to focus on a particular area, you know. So like for example, working on Halo, like my focus was on the single player experience, particularly on building out action combat experiences that the player goes through, right? So it's a very
Mm.
particular part of a larger, much
Yeah.
larger ecosystem of people working
Right,
on all
right,
these
right.
different
Yeah.
things. Um, so, you know, the thing that I've always come to is, you know, I've experienced the burnout of like doing too much, you know, having
Mhm.
too many things to juggle, right? Of like side projects and larger projects. And so where I've come to these days is like the effort is making sure that if I'm doing something creatively outside of a big project, like a Wu-Tang, for example, if
Mhm.
I'm doing something creatively outside of that, it needs to be a different type of creative work that's not the same
Hmm.
because I'm pulling from a different energy, so to speak, or a different,
Gotcha.
you know, thinking process.
Mhm.
So at this point, I basically in my career, I basically kind of done the giant 200 plus game production, right?
Mhm.
And I worked on these giant projects with tons of people. And the basic goal I've had is to slowly get smaller over time, right?
Okay.
To get on smaller teams, right? So get all that experience and like figure out how these things work, and then get to smaller teams where I can have more agency
Mhm.
in those productions and be able to imbue more of my own background and creative ideas into, you know, what I'm making, right?
Right.
And then the smallest version of that is going to be like your indie 20 person, 10-person team project, right? Where it's like, you know, you sink or swim, right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
um I think I've gotten to the point now where the most recent um Wu-Tang experience, that was like my smallest, large work team, you know, where that was like the smallest team I've been on so far, where it's been like a large scale production. And so, that was a really good experience in terms of being able to be in that space, have a lot of agency, have a lot of creative input, and really like, you know, be able to make a, you know, be able to have people see some part of me in that, right? That's
Mhm.
like more obvious.
Mhm.
And then of course, you know, I still kind of dabble with my own projects as I can, where it's just kind of like, here's me, right? Explicitly as a designer.
Gotcha.
Here's, you know, what I'm trying to like show you guys. Here's what I'm trying to
Mm.
have y'all experience with the rest of the I'm working on. So it's, I guess it's just a balance, continued balance of like kind of going between those two states, right? Of having that creative agency versus having less of it, but then also being able to um, not use so much energy. So
Talk a little bit about Melanated Game Kitchen, your 10,000-foot view of it, but what is it in, like, its totality and sort of, like, what is it that you're trying to, push with that?
yeah, I think that's a nice little segue because it's kind of relevant to like the whole different types of creative things, right, going on.
Mhm.
So the reason that we started the collective, the Game Kitchen Collective, is primarily because myself and some friends wanted to work on games together, but didn't have the time to like commit to like a weekend long game jam, right?
Mhm.
Because all of us were working at studios. It was just like too much stuff, right? Too much. You're doing too much to be able to make anything else. So we started like, okay, why don't we get together online at this point because we didn't live in the same city anymore, and let's make some games together like over a couple weeks right? And from me, because of my background, I was like, well, here's the kind of things that I don't see in the industry right now. Here's the kind of games that I don't see people making, or like the types of like topics, right?
Hmm.
I wanted to focus on, what does people from my background, and I'm African American, I'm from the South, right? So I'm like, okay, what do people from my background, what do we want, what would someone like me want to see in games? What am I not seeing that people are making, right? And so I kind of started from that standpoint. I'm like, okay, what kind of things would I think would be relevant to me and other people from my background that we can make games for, and we can focus a theme around
Mhm.
to make something, right? And so it kind of built from that, where we started making stuff on every couple months. We would get together and do a small game jam, and see what we would come up with, and use some new tools and new engines. Go back to the tools thing, an opportunity to learn new tools, right?
Mhm.
So it was like, you know, at work we're using these highly specialized big engines, right? And it's like, if you want to do anything else, you have to learn that stuff outside of that work job, the
Hmm.
experience, right? So
Yeah.
it was like, okay, let's spend time learning Godot. Let's spend time learning Pico 8. Let's dabble in RenPy or whatever, right? Like, just use that for this particular jam and learn that tool a little bit and see if we like it, right? So that's kind of how all that kind of stuff started trickling down. And then as we started doing this more often, more people started showing up, right? Other indies, other creators who either had experience like me, or people who were like early in their development career, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Or freelancers who, do stuff for music and art, but not solo. They're not like solo devs, right? They're
Gotcha.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
I just want to make games with other cool people
Mhm.
who, I, resonate with. And I was like, all right, cool. Like, we have a good space for you, so come through. So it was just kind of trickling down like that. And then um basically from that point, I was just like, okay, so we see where the industry is going, as you've observed in all of the interviews that you've done, right? And then the news, especially in the last couple of years, like, the industry's struggling.
Mhm.
And we know that there's value in our culture and our personal experiences. And so, it's kind of seen as an opportunity to say, okay, now this is probably the best time for us to go to the next level and
Mhm.
say, look, like, let's get serious. Like, we're making interesting stuff. Let's really like push this to release this stuff, and start building real games that people can play and that are polished, that are good experiences, and putting those out,
Mhm.
and getting other people to work with us on these things, people who are out of work, people who are looking for experience, people who are just trying to creatively have a creative outlet from their AAA job.
Mhm.
you know, basically tapping into all those kinds of people who I would resonate with, and say, hey, we can all work together on building things, um, and you can just contribute how you can contribute, and we'll ensure that everybody, as we put stuff out, as we finish it, people get compensated for their contribution,
Mhm.
and we try to focus it around just some African ways of knowing about, like, Ubuntu, and how people have to support each other, and how mutual aid and mutual support networks should work. So our goal is building those kinds of networks within our ecosystem, allowing us to make cool stuff that we care about and that other people care about to play and pay for, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So that's kind of been the big push over the last couple of years, is like starting to get to that point and actually like releasing games, right? So now
Mhm.
we have 2 games in production, so to speak, with like some offshoot, indie studios within our group, and we're
Okay.
hoping to, kind of keep pushing that direction.
Mhm. That's pretty cool. And so, like, give a little rundown of the games you've worked on, just so people can kinda get an idea of the things you've dabbled in.
Yeah, I guess I glossed over that earlier, right?
Mhm.
Is the games I've contributed so far, Shadow of War, which is the sequel to Shadow of Mordor.
Mhm.
Um, that was my first, AAA experience. I was excited to work on that as a
Mhm.
fan, you know? I think generally, a lot of the things I've worked on, I have been fans of the studio or the games at
That's
some
pretty
point,
cool, yeah.
so it's been a good experience to be able to take my, understanding of how those games work and then, like, also, like, more modern day, takes,
Yeah,
so to
yeah.
speak, as a
Mhm,
player and, like, try to imbue that into these games, right? So, Shadow of War was kinda like that, just, is a direct sequel, right, experience.
mhm.
And then, I worked on Halo Infinite, which, that was pretty interesting. I worked on the single player in particular to that, game,
Mhm.
building out its new systems, with the team. After that, I worked on the Marvel Avengers project. I worked on the single player experience in particular, where specifically I worked on the boss fights. I like to tell
Gotcha.
people we had a boss fight team.
Mhm.
I made all the boss fights
Gotcha.
basically.
That's pretty cool.
Um, it was pretty cool. We had a lot of cool fights in that game. Even though it had a struggle in its multiplayer, but the single player experience was really well polished. Um, so I worked on that for a couple years, and then after that, I worked on God of War Ragnarok, which is probably my biggest project,
Mhm.
on their combat team, working on the encounters and how, setting up all the experiences that players go through when they fight all the enemies, basically,
Yeah.
working with the
Elite
team on that.
elite game. I mean, I'd
Yeah,
put it up there, you know, as,
yeah.
one of the faves for a lot of I mean, God of War has always really been kinda up
Mhm,
there. I mean, that's always kinda just been
mhm.
one of those series, but, I mean, yeah, Ragnarok definitely pushed the envelope. I mean, the attacks and like you said, the counters and stuff. Because I mean, there's a lot going on in that
A
game
lot
too.
going
I mean,
on.
with the axe and all that stuff, so it's just like, okay, yeah, this is different, and I mean, the way the game looks as well, I mean, it's just a
It's
beautiful
beautiful.
game, so
Mhm.
that's definitely interesting for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy what they were able to achieve with that, and
Mhm.
probably, hey, at this, at that point in my career, like that was like the top of like action game experiences
Yeah.
to work on,
Mhm.
to work with the best of the best, right? And
Yeah.
so that's kind of what that was for me. Um, and then after I finished that project, after that came out, then I moved to Brass Lion to work on the Wu Tang game, um, which was, this is their first game, so it was definitely like the smallest team I've worked on for
Mhm.
something that is supposed to be like an action RPG experience. And I think this has been my favorite project to date because of the combination of all the different things that I love into one
Mhm.
game. You know what I'm saying?
Gotcha. Mhm.
And so that's been, and then I finished my contribution to that project a couple months ago. So now
Yeah.
I'm just focused on independent work. I'm doing freelance and some contract stuff, and then also we're building up things with the Game Kitchen to start doing some co-development and consulting for other studios and games and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah.
That's pretty interesting, man. You got a lot
Hmm.
of big time games under your belt, and I mean, sort of speak to that too, because I mean, a lot of people have also, I've heard so many times of just how hard it is to ship a game or how hard it is to even get that sort of experience or like just being a part of a game you could say for years and then the game never come out. You know what I'm saying? Like
Oh
it's just
yeah.
different things that can happen like that. So like I mean to be able to be a part of those type of I mean God of War, I mean that was always coming out. But like I mean, but like,
Right. Right.
it's just
Right.
like certain things to where like you just don't know what can happen in a certain cycle. I mean, you could have be delayed, it could be, whatever the case may be, they might try to hold it over for a new platform, like new
Mhm.
console or something, you know what I'm saying? Like, so things can happen. I get that. So like the fact that you have been able to be a part of so many like big time games, I mean, I'm sure that's pretty cool to I mean, have that on the resume.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Yeah.
I'm always kinda surprised at, like, the types of things I've been able to work on at this point
Mhm.
because, um, you know, I think as a designer, early in my career in particular, I've as any creative does, right? You try to refine your process, but you also try to
Mhm.
refine your style and, the types of things that you want to focus on,
Mhm.
right? And so that's been that process for me since I joined is, figuring out, what do I wanna say? What
Mhm.
do I wanna, types of things do I want to create out in this space that's valuable to me and to others, right? And what are my strengths and weaknesses in this process, you know?
Yeah, right.
So for me, the initial thing was always I love action games. I love, JRPGs, action
Mhm.
RPGs, just pure action stuff and things that have a strong narrative, right? Things that have a
Hmm.
strong storytelling. So it's always been about the action, things that feel good to play, and then strong storytelling. So
Hmm.
I've been fortunate to basically like most of the things I've worked on has been that.
Yeah.
Pretty
Yeah.
much, with God of War being like the top in
Mhm.
the industry, top action game type of thing with the best of the best. So
And
it's
I mean,
been
it's interesting too,
yeah.
because like, people also sort of say that like, obviously like the battle royales and the
Mhm.
online, all the time sort of thing. But like, I mean, God of War is a one player
Mhm.
experience all the way through.
Mhm.
But I mean, I've always said that too. If the story is good and the game is good, I mean, people are gonna play it. Like, I mean,
People don't play it,
you know what I'm
right.
saying? Like, I don't even know if I finished playing the game. I mean, I still got it. I could go back and start playing it, you know what I'm saying, tomorrow. I'll probably find something that I hadn't even found the first time I played. So you have that sort of insight. Like, what do you say to sort of people who think that, um, single player gaming is dying or sort of single player, it's sort of being pushed to the wayside a little bit, but I think it's starting to
Mhm.
make a little bit of a comeback personally. Like, what do you think about that?
Mhm. Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it's one of those kinds of things I think it gets exacerbated from the online conversation a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Especially due to the fact that like a lot of these blockbuster, I guess is the best word to put it, right? Blockbuster single player experiences are very expensive to make.
Yeah.
Just because of the quality level and fidelity and the graphics and the 3D models and how accurate things have to be. It's just so hard to
Hmm.
make them, and it's unsustainable. Multiplayer has a place, obviously, in different levels of the multiplayer experience, right? Your
Hmm.
indies, your more high fidelity, your Call of Duties and your sports joints,
Hmm.
right? Like they have a spot, especially for like the type of, is it competitive multiplayer?
Oh
Is it
yeah,
going to
I definitely get it in on the sports side and stuff too. But
Yeah.
these games are just movies anyway. So like it's just like, you know what I'm saying? It's like basically just visual is the storytelling element, like you said. And even the
Mhm.
online, they have cutscenes and stuff to be able to have to
Yep.
tell a story to make it
Yep.
make sense. So I mean, like, it's not like it's going anywhere, but I mean, I guess like you said, it just comes down to the expense account and how much, you're willing to spend on it. But I mean, we say that, and then
Mhm.
on the other end,
Mhm.
you're gonna have Grand Theft Auto look like
Mhm.
real world.
Mhm.
It's gonna be like insane when the game comes out. Not everybody is Rockstar, I guess, but I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
just sort of like
exactly.
what is sort of that I guess that ground to
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying for
Those
single
things
player
that like
game to actually
that's
stand.
why yeah, that's why I'm grateful that, I try to look at things from a holistic standpoint when I can, especially across the different entertainment experiences that we're creating, right?
Mhm.
So we have film and TV, and then we have our games and different degrees of games, right? And so I'm glad that at least, I love animation, for example.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think animation as an art form is amazing at what it's able to do. And so I'm grateful to see that like we've got studios like Sony Pictures and then also Sony as a games company
Mhm.
that still support like very specific types of experiences. And I call out Sony in terms of their pictures because they're supporting animation and unique
Yeah.
animation, right?
Mhm.
And I'm glad to see that we got something like South of Midnight, right?
Mhm.
Which is single player double A experience that tells a really good story and has solid gameplay, but very unique style, right? It's
Mhm.
not a blockbuster, level. graphical style, right?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so I'm glad to see that and how well it did because, that's the kind of thing that we kinda need in our single player, group of types of experiences, right? Things that are not that same level,
Mhm.
as, a blockbuster feature, but tell a good story, have good gameplay, have a unique look to them, and are able to be released in a
Yeah.
couple years instead of,
Yeah, so
taking
basically
forever.
basically what you're saying is instead of the AAA experience, I mean, a double A or a single A experience is fine, or I mean, you got indies that can
Exactly,
release a dope
exactly.
platformer that could be, the next hit. So try
Mhm.
to fill in the gaps instead of trying to
Yeah,
go,
fill
I
in
mean,
the
because
gaps,
obviously
right.
online has that AAA space on lock right now as far as the
Mhm.
battle royale multiplayer experience. What is on the horizon for you? Like, what does the future look like as far as the projects you're working on? Or you're sort of in the space of trying to work on your own projects and kind of freelancing it a little bit, just kind of testing the waters. What is your immediate plans and then sort of like future? Like, what
Yeah.
would you like to be happening, be a part of? Like, what are you looking like?
I'm helping out with a couple projects right now. Some of them are with the Game Kitchen.
Mhm.
So one of those is Clock Out at 2, which is our
Oh, yeah.
narrative adventure game.
Mhm.
Basically, it's like Get Out meets Severance,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
We're still working on that, and production is still underway. And then we've also got a couple of new games from our game jam that we might work on, but Crumble Party, which we released a first version of that.
Mhm.
We're looking to do a sequel to that. That's just kind of more robust experience and properly release it. So we've kind of got that happening in like a pre-production point right now.
Mhm.
And then I just hope to release a online course called Intuition 101, aka like how to tap into your own inner guidance system. Is
Hmm.
called Awaken Your Inner Oracle by Oracle Jamie. I've helped out with the just the release of it and
Mhm.
some branding and marketing stuff for it. So
Gotcha.
be doing that. And but yeah, those are the things that are out right now or that are being actively worked on.
Mhm.
And then besides that, obviously for anyone that's like listening to this, any devs or other creators, we're looking to work with other creatives in the gaming space as part of the Game Kitchen, right? Looking to collaborate on all aspects really. This is the part that's like now and the future, right?
Mhm.
Because the focus right now is um, figuring out the next iteration of like a larger, more robust, sustainable ecosystem for indie creators,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
So this is being like artists, sound designers, musicians, programmers, content creators, streamers, right? Writers, all these people are important people in a game.
Mhm.
Producers, right? You have the development process, you have the pre-production process, you have the release, and the tail end of all that kind of stuff. These are all
Mhm.
extremely important, and you know, with our group, we're trying to bring all those people together to support and make these games get released and get supported, right? But it's also from a larger standpoint that when you're independent, like you're trying to tap into all these people, and so we should all be working together more easily,
Mhm.
helping streamers get good content and streamers helping to, show games out to their audiences, right? And so
Mhm.
I do think that there's work that to be done that I am, looking and talking with people to do to help bridge some of these communities together so that we can get further, get our bags and
Yeah.
also help each other, you know what I'm saying? So that's kinda now and the future is kinda like where that bigger picture is right now for me.
If people wanna reach out to you, find the things that you connected to or websites, socials, anything like that, give everybody how they can find you.
So obviously I'm on the professional sites a bit. As far as socials are concerned, you can find me at TimStatis, TimStatis, at pretty much on IG, Blue Sky. Um, And then also on itch.io, if you're on there as well.
Mhm.
That's also my portfolio website with all my work and links. Is using that username. My Beacons.ai slash TimStatis has a lot of my other links as well. So you can find us there. That also leads to all the other site locations. So the Melanated Game Kitchen, we're on itch.io primarily. So the links are connected to me, and also on there you can check out our latest game jam and also recent works. Um, you have our Discord, that's also on our itch.io page.
Mm,
If you're curious about it, jumping in, see what we're up to,
mhm.
connecting with us to work on stuff together. All that
Uh-huh.
stuff's on there. I'm always I'm on Discord a lot. And then I usually tell folks to email me if they want to reach out to connect. Potential collaborations between game stuff, freelance stuff, consulting work that we're doing for cultural consultation. That's where folks can find me, connect, and see about some collaborations for this year, next year, pretty much.